When a child tells you they're scared, you listen. That's a lesson every parent learns, and one that saved 43 lives on a sunny afternoon in Charleston Harbor. Millionaire Jack Rivers was greeting guests aboard his yacht when 9-year-old Emma pushed through the crowd. "Please," she whispered, tugging his sleeve. "There's a bomb on your boat." The champagne glasses stopped clinking. Some guests chuckled nervously, but Jack looked into those terrified young eyes and saw something that made his blood run cold. She was telling the truth. In that moment, he had to choose: dismiss her like everyone else, or trust a child he'd never met. How did this little girl know about the bomb? And who was behind this deadly plot? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The Charleston sun hung low in the sky, casting golden reflections across the harbor where Jack Rivers' yacht, the Second Chance, sat moored like a floating palace. At 62, Jack had the weathered look of a man who'd earned every dollar of his fortune through grit and determination. His salt and pepper beard was neatly trimmed, his blue eyes still sharp despite the crow's feet that deepened when he smiled. Though he smiled less these days, a yacht represented more than wealth. To Jack, he'd bought it 3 years after Lily's death, naming it for the second chance at purpose he'd found through his grief. Every polished rail, every gleaming surface reminded him why he held these charity galas. The Children's Harbor Hospital had become his life's work, funded by the fortune he'd built in shipping logistics and the pain of losing his only child. Mr. Rivers, the catering staff, needs to know where to set up the dessert station. Margaret Chun, his event coordinator, appeared at his elbow with her ever-present tablet. At 45, she managed his charitable endeavors with the efficiency of a military general and the heart of a mother. "Starboard deck, near the quartet," Jack replied, signing another donation receipt. "And Margaret? Make sure the children from the hospital tour get extra attention. They're the real guests of honor today." She smiled, a genuine warmth breaking through her professional demeanor. "Already arranged. The clown and magician are setting up in the main salon." Jack nodded, his mind already moving to the next detail. 5 years of these events, and he'd never grown comfortable with the pageantry. But the hospital needed funding, and Charleston's elite needed reminding that their wealth came with responsibilities. The guest registry sat open on a mahogany stand near the gangway, its leather binding embossed with gold lettering. Jack watched as arrivals signed their names with the provided fountain pen, a small touch of elegance that Margaret insisted upon. Senator Morrison had arrived early, his signature bold and flourishing across half a page. Sarah Chun, no relation to Margaret, had signed in precise, small letters, befitting the tech mogul's attention to detail. Between them, dozens of other names represented millions in potential donations. "Jack Rivers, you old sea dog!" Captain Murphy's voice boomed across the deck. The 70-year-old harbor master approached with his characteristic rolling gait, his white beard making him look like Hemingway's younger brother. "Fine day for sailing. Though the weather service says we might see some chop later. We're not casting off for another hour," Jack said, clasping the older man's weathered hand. "Just a harbor cruise. 3 hours maximum." "Aye, but the sea's got her own schedule." Murphy's eyes twinkled with the wisdom of 50 years on the water. "Still, couldn't ask for better conditions now. Your guests should have a grand time." Brad Coleman, Jack's security chief, materialized from behind the bulkhead. Former Navy, built like a linebacker, with eyes that never stopped scanning for threats. "Perimeter secure, Mr. Rivers. My team's done 3 sweeps. We're good to go." "Thank you, Brad." Jack appreciated the man's thoroughness, even if it seemed excessive for a charity cruise. But after Lily Well, you couldn't be too careful with children aboard. The guests continued to arrive, each adding their name to the registry. Jack knew most of them, had done business with half, shared grief with a few, and tolerated the rest. For the sake of the cause, they came in designer suits and summer dresses, diamonds glinting in the afternoon sun, their laughter carrying across the water like the cries of exotic birds. Sarah Chun stood apart from the others, her simple black dress understated among the peacock display of wealth. She donated more than anyone except Jack himself, yet never sought recognition. Her company had revolutionized pediatric medical devices, driven by her own experience, losing a sibling to inadequate health care. Quite a turnout, she said, joining Jack at the rail. Margaret outdid herself with the invitations. Jack watched a family of dolphins surface near the harbor mouth, though I sometimes wonder if smaller gatherings might be more genuine. The hospital needs the money, Sarah said simply. And these people need to feel important while giving it. It's a fair trade. Before Jack could respond, a disturbance near the gangway caught his attention. A small figure pushed through the crowd of arriving guests, clearly out of place among the elegant attendees. A young girl, maybe 9 years old, in a worn sundress and scuffed shoes, clutching a teddy bear like a lifeline. That's when everything changed. That's when Emma arrived with her terrible warning, and the golden afternoon transformed into something else entirely. Jack moved quickly through the crowd, reaching Emma before security could intervene. Up close, he could see the tear tracks on her cheeks, the way her small hands trembled as they clutched the worn teddy bear. Something about her struck him as familiar, the determined set of her jaw perhaps, or the intelligence burning in her hazel eyes despite her terror. "It's all right," he said, dropping to one knee to meet her at eye level. "I heard what you said about the bomb." Behind him, conversations resumed with nervous laughter. Someone made a joke about children's imaginations. Brad Coleman approached with the purposeful stride of security personnel everywhere, but Jack held up a hand to stop him. "Please," Emma whispered, her voice barely audible above the jazz quartet. "You have to believe me. I heard them talking." "Who did you hear?" Jack kept his voice calm, the same tone he'd used with Lily when she'd had nightmares. "Where were you?" "The Marina Cafe." "I was." She glanced around nervously. "I was hiding under a table, playing, and these two men came in. They didn't see me." Brad had reached them now, his expression professionally neutral. "Mr. Rivers, should I escort?" "Give us a moment, Brad." Jack didn't take his eyes off Emma. What did these men look like? Emma shifted her weight, wincing as if remembering something painful. One had a scar. Here. She traced a line from her left ear to her jaw. The other wore really shiny shoes. Black ones. Like mirrors. And they talked about a bomb? She nodded. Emphatically. The engine room. They said it would be in the engine room. They had a drawing. I saw it when they put it on the table. I drew what I remembered. From her bear's worn embrace, she produced a folded piece of paper. Jack unfolded it carefully, revealing a child's crayon drawing of a yacht. It was surprisingly detailed, with a red circle drawn around what was clearly meant to be the lower deck area. The engine room. Emma Louise Hartley. A woman's voice carried across the deck, high with panic. An older woman pushed through. The guests, her gray hair escaping from a neat bun, her simple dress suggesting she didn't belong at this gathering any more than Emma did. "Grandma." Emma turned but didn't run to her, still focused on making Jack understand. "I had to tell him." "I'm so sorry," the woman gasped, reaching them. "She slipped away while I was talking to the pharmacist." "Emma, you can't just—" "Ma'am," Jack interrupted gently, rising to his feet. "Your granddaughter says she overheard something concerning about my yacht." Claire Hartley's face shifted from embarrassment to worry. "Emma doesn't lie, Mr. Rivers. If she says she heard something—" She trailed off, studying Jack's face. Recognition dawned in her eyes. "You're the one who funds the children's wing. My daughter used to." She stopped abruptly. Captain Murphy had wandered over, curiosity overcoming his usual reserve. He looked at Emma with the assessment of a man who'd raised 4 children and a dozen grandchildren. "Young lady seems mighty upset," he observed. "In my experience, children don't get this worked up over imagination." "She has an active imagination," Claire said defensively, pulling Emma closer. "But she's never made up anything like this." Jack looked at the drawing. Again, the detail was remarkable, the placement of the decks, the proportion of the yacht. Either Emma had spent considerable time studying boats, or, "When did you hear these men talking?" he asked. "This morning, early. Grandma was getting her medicine, and I went to get a muffin at the cafe." Emma's words tumbled out faster now. They had coffee, but didn't drink it. They kept looking at their watches. One of them said something about timing and tides. Sarah Chun had drifted closer, her expression thoughtful. "The Marina Cafe is only accessible to boat owners and their guests," she said quietly. "Not just anyone can walk in." Brad's posture had shifted subtly, his casual dismissal replaced by professional alertness. "Can you describe anything else about these men? Anything at all?" Emma squeezed her teddy bear tighter. "The one with shiny shoes had a ring, silver, with a black stone. And they mentioned the name Garrison. They said Garrison better be right about the timeline." Jack felt his blood chill. Garrison. He knew that name. Knew it too well. "Mr. Rivers?" Captain Murphy's voice carried a note of concern. "You've gone pale as a ghost." "Garrison used to work for me," Jack said slowly. "I fired him 18 months ago. Embezzlement." The crowd around them had grown, drawn by the drama despite themselves. Senator Morrison pushed forward, his face flushed with impatience. "Rivers, what's this about? Are we having our cruise or not?" Jack looked at Emma one more time. The terror in her eyes was real, visceral. It was the same look Lily had worn the morning of the school bombing, when she'd begged not to go to school, claiming she felt sick. He'd dismissed it as a ploy to avoid a math test. He'd never dismiss a child's fear again. Jack Rivers stood at the center of a growing circle of Charleston's elite, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The ship's master key hung heavy in his pocket, its brass weight a reminder of the responsibility he carried. In his hand, Emma's drawing seemed to pulse with urgency. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice cutting through the murmur of speculation. "I need your attention." The conversations died away. Even the jazz quartet sensed the shift in atmosphere and let their instruments fall silent. 43 faces turned toward him, curious, impatient, some already annoyed at the disruption to their afternoon's entertainment. "This young lady has brought to my attention a credible threat to this vessel." Jack kept his tone steady, authoritative. "She overheard 2 men discussing the placement of an explosive device in our engine room." The silence lasted perhaps 3 seconds before erupting into chaos. "This is absurd." Senator Morrison's voice rose above the rest. "You're going to ruin this entire event based on the word of a child?" "A child who knew specific details," Jack countered, "including the name of a former employee with a grudge against me." Margaret Chun had her phone out, fingers flying across the screen. "Should I call the police?" "I've already signaled the harbor patrol," Captain Murphy said quietly. He'd slipped away during the discussion and returned just as quietly. "They're sending a boat, but it'll take time." "This is hysteria," Morrison continued, his face growing redder. "Do you have any idea what this will do to your reputation, to the charity's reputation?" "Senator," Sarah Chun spoke up, her voice calm but firm. "What will it do to everyone's reputation if we ignore this warning and something happens?" The crowd shifted uneasily. Several guests were already edging toward the gangway, their self-preservation instincts overcoming social obligations. "Everyone needs to evacuate," Jack announced, calmly and orderly. "Brad, coordinate with your team. I want everyone off this yacht in 10 minutes. You could be liable for false panic," Someone called out a lawyer, naturally. If this is a hoax, then I'll take full responsibility. Jack pulled the master key from his pocket. It's ornate, design catching the light, but I'm not gambling with lives. Not again. The personal admission silenced most objections. Many here knew about Lily, had attended the memorial service, had watched Jack transform his grief into charitable action. I'll help search, a woman's voice said. Jack turned to see a tall African-American woman step forward from among the guests. Officer Patricia Hayes, Charleston PD. I'm off duty, but, she shrugged, once a cop. I'm not leaving my boat, Captain. Murphy declared. Been sailing these waters for 50 years. I'll be damned if I abandon ship now. Count me in, Sarah Chon added. I've got some experience with electronics. Might be useful. Brad Coleman looked like he wanted to object, but knew better. My team can handle the evacuation. If you're going below, you'll need someone who knows the layout. Please, Emma said, tugging on Jack's sleeve. I want to help. I remember more details, things they said. Absolutely not, Claire Hartley said immediately. Emma, we're leaving right now. But Grandma, your granddaughter's done enough. Jack said gently. She's given us the warning. Let us handle the rest. He watched the struggle play across Emma's young face, the desire to help warring with a child's natural fear. Something about her expression, the way she bit her lower lip while thinking, triggered a memory. Lily used to do the same thing when wrestling with a difficult decision. The man with the scar, Emma said suddenly. He kept checking his phone. He said something about the tide tables. Said it had to be high tide for maximum impact. Captain Murphy's expression darkened. High tides in 90 minutes. If they want the yacht to drift into the shipping lane after an explosion. More casualties, Officer Hayes finished grimly. A yacht on fire, out of control, could hit anything. The evacuation had begun in earnest now. Guests streamed toward the gangway, their earlier elegance replaced by barely controlled urgency. Some clutched their phones, already calling drivers. Others simply fled, designer shoes clicking against the deck in rapid staccato. Senator Morrison remained, his face still flushed, but now with something beyond anger. If this is real, he said quietly, whoever did this knew there would be children aboard. From the hospital tour. Yes, Jack said simply. They knew. Then I'm staying to help. The senator loosened his tie, the political bluster falling away, to reveal something more genuine underneath. I've got a granddaughter Emma's age. Margaret Chun appeared at Jack's elbow. Evacuation proceeding smoothly. The hospital children's tour was delayed in traffic. Thank God. I've called to cancel. Small mercies, Jack murmured. He looked at his assembled team, a police officer, a tech mogul, a senator, an old sea captain, and a security chief. Not the search party he would have chosen, but perhaps the one he needed. The engine room first, he decided, holding up Emma's drawing. If she's right, and I believe she is, that's where we'll find it. Sir, Brad said, protocol would be to wait for the bomb squad. In 90 minutes, this yacht could be a floating bomb in the shipping lane. Jack headed for the stairs leading below deck. I won't let that happen. As they descended into the yacht's depths, Emma's voice carried after them. There's something else. They said something about a timer, a waterproof timer. Jack paused at the top of the stairs, looking back at the brave little girl who might have just saved all their lives. Thank you, Emma. Now get to safety with your grandmother. The last thing he saw before descending was Emma clutching her teddy, bare, tears streaming down her face not from fear, he realized, but from frustration at being left behind. The temperature dropped 10 degrees as they descended into the yacht's mechanical heart. The elegant upper decks gave way to utilitarian corridors, the smell of salt and diesel replacing expensive perfume. Emergency lighting cast harsh shadows on the metal walls. and the thrum of the generators seemed ominously loud in the confined space. "Stay close," Brad said, leading with practiced efficiency. "The engine room's through here." Officer Hayes had shed her heels, moving barefoot with the quiet confidence of someone used to dangerous situations. "Anyone know what we're looking for exactly?" "Bombs come in all shapes and sizes." The drawing showed something attached to the main engine housing, Sarah Chun said, studying Emma's sketch in the harsh light. "And if they mentioned waterproof timers, we're dealing with someone who knows marine equipment." Captain Murphy squeezed past a bundle of pipes, his weathered face grim. Garrison worked in the shipping industry before Jack hired him. He'd know exactly where to place a device for maximum damage. The engine room door stood before them, its wheel lock cold under. Jack's hands. He inserted the master key, the click of the mechanism unnaturally loud. The door swung open to reveal the yacht's mechanical heart, a gleaming array of engines, pumps, and control systems that had cost more than most people's homes. "Spread out," Hayes instructed, immediately taking charge. "Look for anything that doesn't belong. Fresh tool marks, new wiring, packages that seem out of place." They fanned out through the space, the only sounds their breathing and the distant slap of waves against the hull. Jack found himself checking his watch obsessively. 82 minutes until high tide. Here. Sarah's voice, sharp with discovery, behind the main engine. "There's wiring that doesn't match the rest." They converged on her position. Hayes squeezed into the narrow space, using her phone's flashlight to illuminate what Sarah had found. Jack heard her sharp intake of breath. "Everyone back. Now." Her command voice brooked no argument. "That's military grade. 100 to 4, if I'm right. Enough to turn this yacht into matchsticks." "Can you disarm it?" Senator Morrison asked, his political composure cracking. Hayes emerged slowly, her dark skin ashen. "I can see it clearly. Professional job." "The timer's showing 47 minutes. That's not possible," Murphy protested. "High tide isn't for. They're not waiting for high tide," Jack realized. "They want the explosion to happen while we're searching. Make it look like we triggered it ourselves." Sarah was already pulling out her phone. "No signal. We're too deep in the hull." "Try the radio," Brad suggested, but Murphy was already shaking his head. "Static on all channels. Someone's jamming us." The implications hit them simultaneously. They were trapped in the bowels of a yacht with a bomb, no way to call for help, and 46 minutes on the clock. Options? Jack demanded. Hayes crouched, again studying the device. "I can see the configuration. Standard timer, but there's something else. A secondary trigger. Looks like a mercury switch. If we try to move it..." "Boom," Morrison finished. "The timer's integrated into the main detonator. I can't just pull it out." Hayes stood, frustration evident. Whoever built this knew what they were doing. This isn't some amateur with internet instructions. "Garrison had contacts," Jack said, "from his shipping days. Some of them weren't exactly legitimate." A new sound echoed through the engine room, footsteps on the deck above, multiple sets, moving with purpose. "The evacuation should be complete," Brad said, hand moving instinctively to where his service weapon would normally rest. "Murphy," Jack ordered, "get topside. Find out who's up there and get word to the bomb squad. Tell them exactly what we found." The old captain nodded and headed for the door, moving with surprising agility for his age. Sarah had her phone out again, switching between apps. "The jammer has to be close, probably on the yacht itself. If I can find the signal source..." 38 minutes, Hayes announced. Jack stared at the device that would kill them all. Such a small thing to cause so much destruction. The red LED, numbers counted down with mechanical indifference, each digit change marking another second closer to wait. Morrison had been silent, studying the bomb from a different angle. That component there. The blue wire running to the secondary board. That's not part of the bomb. Hayes looked where he pointed. You're right. That's a receiver. 4. A remote trigger, Sarah breathed. They can set it off whenever they want. The timer's just backup. The footsteps above had stopped. In the silence, they could hear the distant sound of boat engines. But was it help arriving or something else? We need to make a decision, Jack said. Stay here and guard the bomb. Or Emma's voice echoed in his memory. They said something about a timer. A waterproof timer. Waterproof, he said suddenly. She specifically said waterproof. Why would that matter unless they planned to flood the engine room? Hayes finished. Make it look like an accident. Yacht takes on water, electrical short, explosion. The seacocks, Murphy said from the doorway, breathing hard from his sprint. Someone could open them remotely. This whole room would flood in minutes. Who's topside? Brad demanded. No one, but there's a boat circling. Been jamming our radio. And I found this. He held up a copper penny, its surface gleaming despite its age. 1943, worth a fortune to collectors. Found it right by the bomb. Someone was here recently, Jack said. Someone careless enough to drop a valuable coin. 28 minutes on the timer, and somewhere above them, a boat circled like a shark waiting. 25 minutes. The red digits glowed like accusatory eyes in the dim engine room. They'd established a watch rotation, someone always keeping eyes on the bomb, while others searched for options. The circling boat above had gone silent, its presence more menacing for the absence of engine noise. Jack found himself staring at the device that would kill them all, his hand unconsciously moving to his wallet. The leather was worn smooth from years of handling, shaped to the contents it carried. He pulled out the photograph he looked at every day, but tried not to see. Lily smiled back at him from the faded paper. Frozen at 9 years old, taken 3 days before the bombing. Before the morning, she'd begged not to go to school. Your daughter? Officer Hayes asked softly, taking her turn at watch. Lily. The name still hurt to say. She'd be Emma's age now, 14. Hayes nodded, understanding in her eyes. I became a cop because of my brother Marcus. Shot in a convenience store robbery when he was 16. The clerk said he tried to stop the gunman, protect the other customers. Sounds like he was brave, Jack said. Brave and dead. Hayes's voice carried no bitterness, just weary acceptance. I thought if I became a cop, I could stop it from happening to other families. Some days I even believe it. Senator Morrison had been uncharacteristically quiet, sitting on an upturned crate near the bomb. My nephew was at Lily's school, he said suddenly. Timothy. He was in the library when the bomb went off. Lost his left leg. Jack looked at him sharply. He'd never known this connection. I pulled every string, called in every favor to find. The bomber, Morrison continued. Nothing. Like he vanished into smoke. Timothy still has nightmares. The Riverside School bombing, Sarah Chun said quietly. I remember. My company was developing pediatric prosthetics then. We donated dozens of units. Captain Murphy cleared his throat. Lost my boy Samuel to the sea. Storm caught his fishing, though 10 years back. Coast Guard said they probably never saw it coming. Quick, at least. He pulled out a flask, took a sip, offered it around, to the ones who go before us. They passed the flask in silence, each taking a small sip. The whiskey. Burned, but it was a living warmth in the face of the cold countdown. You said Emma mentioned a name, Hayes prompted. Garrison. Jack's jaw tightened. Paul Garrison. Hired him 5 years ago, right after I started the charity. He had impeccable credentials, references. Turned out he'd been skimming from me. Donations. Small amounts at first, then larger. When I caught him, he'd taken nearly 200,000. That's motive for revenge, Morrison said. But not for this. This is excessive. There's more. Jack stared at the photograph of Lily. When I confronted him, he broke down. Said he needed the money for his daughter's medical treatments. Showed me pictures, doctor bills. I almost let it go. But, Sarah prompted, but I did some checking. A daughter was real. The bills were real. But she died 2 years before he started stealing. He was using her memory to feed a gambling addiction. Jesus, Murphy muttered. I fired him. Pressed charges. He got 18 months, served 6. Last I heard, he'd left Charleston. Jack carefully returned the photo to his wallet. I never imagined he'd come back to this. 18 minutes on the timer. Hayes had been examining the coin Murphy found. This penny, it's in perfect condition. Someone who collects these wouldn't carelessly drop it. Unless they wanted us to find it, Brad finished. Wanted us to know they'd been here. A new sound echoed through the hull. Emma's voice. Faint but distinct. Mr. Rivers. Can you hear me? They rushed to the speaking tube that connected the engine room to the upper decks. Jack grabbed it. Emma, you're supposed to be evacuated. I remembered something. Her voice was tinny through the old system. The man said numbers. 7-4-7-1. He made the other man repeat it 3 times. A code? Sarah grabbed her phone, typing rapidly. 7-4-7-1. That could be Garrison's employee ID, Jack said suddenly. He always complained about having to memorize it for the security system. It could be the disarm code, Hayes said, or it could trigger the bomb immediately. 14 minutes. There's more. Emma's voice continued. The man with the scar, he's here. He's on a boat near the yacht. Grandma called the police, but they're stuck in traffic and the speaking tube went dead. Emma, Jack shouted, but only silence answered. Murphy was already moving. I'll go topside. Check on the girl. It's too dangerous, Brad protested. Son, I've lived through 3 wars and 50 years of hurricanes. 1 bomber doesn't scare me. The old captain's eyes were fierce. Besides, someone needs to protect that brave little girl. He left before anyone could stop him. Sarah had connected her phone to one of the yacht systems. I might be able to trace the jamming signal. If I can find the device. 10 minutes, Hayes announced. Decision time, people. Do we try the code Emma gave us? Jack thought of Lily, of the morning she'd begged not to go to school. He dismissed her fears, sent her anyway. The next time he saw her was at the morgue. Emma had risked everything to warn them. The least he could do was trust her memory. We try the code, he decided. But first, everyone else leaves. This is my risk to take. With respect, Mr. Rivers, Hayes said. Shut up. We're all in this together. Morrison nodded. What she said, though perhaps with more diplomatic language. Sarah looked up from her phone. Found it. The jammer's in the communications room. If I can get to it. 7 minutes. Above them. Footsteps. Pounded on the deck. A child's scream cut through the air, then abruptly stopped. Emma, Jack breathed, his decision made. Hayes watched the bomb. Everyone else were going up. Jack burst onto the main deck to find chaos. Captain Murphy lay sprawled near the pilot house, blood seeping from a gash on his temple. Emma crouched beside him, pressing her small hands against the wound, while her grandmother stood frozen in terror. 20 feet away, a man with a distinctive scar from ear to jaw held a pistol with casual confidence. Mr. Rivers, the scarred man said pleasantly. Right on schedule. 28 minutes left, if your lady cop downstairs is keeping proper time. Let them go, Jack said, moving slowly to put himself between the gunman and Emma. Whatever grievance you have, it's with me. Grievance? The man laughed. This isn't personal, Rivers. It's just business, though my employer does have strong feelings about you. Behind Jack, Sarah and Brad emerged from below. The scarred man shifted his aim to cover all of them. Ah, the full search party. Excellent. When the bomb goes off, the story will be clear wealthy. Businessman attempts to disarm device, triggers explosion instead. Tragic hubris. The Coast Guard is coming, Morrison said, trying for authority despite his obvious fear. In this weather? The scarred man gestured toward the harbor, where white caps had begun forming on the darkening water. The storm came, in faster than predicted. By the time they navigate the chop, we'll be long gone, Murphy groaned, stirring slightly. Emma kept pressure on his wound, her teddy bear abandoned beside her, soaked in the old captain's blood. The sight of it innocent stained by violence made Jack's chest tighten. "Danny's coming," Sarah said suddenly, her phone buzzing despite the jamming. "My tech specialist. He got through the interference somehow." The scarred man's confidence flickered. "Impossible. The jammer is a Radiolock 4000 series," a new voice called out. A young Asian man hauled himself over the yacht's side, dripping seawater and carrying a waterproof equipment bag. "Good device, but it has a frequency gap at 2.4 gigahertz if you know how to exploit it." "Which I do." "Danny," Sarah breathed, "how did you jet ski?" "Heard about the evacuation on the Marine radio before the jamming started." He took in the scene, the gunman, the injured captain, the blood. "Okay, this is worse than I thought." The scarred man's weapon swung toward the new arrival. "One more." "For the body count, then, 15 minutes. Hayes's voice echoed up from below. "Whatever you're doing up there, we're running out of time." Danny had opened his bag, pulling out what looked like a modified tablet. "I can help with the bomb. I've seen this configuration before. Contractor named Garrison sold the design to several criminal organizations. It's all over the dark web." Jack felt the pieces clicking together. Garrison's not just out for revenge. He's selling his services. "Very good," the scarred man said. "Though you're a bit late to the realization. Mr. Garrison has found quite a market for his particular skills, especially among those with grudges against wealthy philanthropists who think they can buy redemption." Emma had been silent through all this, but now she looked up from Murphy's wound. "You're wrong," she said quietly. "Mr. Rivers isn't trying to buy anything. He's trying to help people." "Shut up, kid," the scarred man snapped. "No." Emma stood slowly, her dress stained with blood, her chin lifted in defiance. "You're the one who should shut up. My daddy died fighting bad people like you. He said bullies are just cowards with guns." The scarred man's face darkened. His finger tightened on the trigger. Murphy's hand shot out, grabbing the man's ankle and yanking hard. The gun fired, the bullet going wide as the scarred man stumbled. Brad lunged forward, his security training taking over, and the two men crashed into the deck railing. "The bomb!" Jack shouted. "Danny, can you? On it?" The young man was already racing for the stairs. "Sarah, come with me. I need someone who understands the yacht's electrical systems." Jack started to follow, but Emma grabbed his hand. "The numbers. 7471. Don't forget." The scarred man had broken free from Brad, but lost his gun in the struggle. He backed toward the railing, pulling something from his pocket, a small device with a single red button. "Remote trigger," Hayes called out, emerging from below. "Everyone, down!" The scarred man smiled coldly. 12 minutes left. But why wait? His thumb moved toward the button. Emma's thrown teddy bear hit him square in the face. It was a child's desperate gesture, but it provided the split second of distraction Hayes needed. Her borrowed service weapon taken from Brad's emergency. Kit barked once. The scarred man's hand spasmed. The remote detonator arced through the air, spinning end over end before splashing into the harbor water 20 feet from the yacht. "No." The scarred man clutched his shoulder where Hayes's bullet had found its mark. He looked at the water where the detonator had vanished, then at the armed cop advancing on him. Without another word, he vaulted over the railing hitting the water in an awkward dive. "Let him go," Jack said as Brad moved to pursue. "The bomb's still active." From below, Danny's voice carried up. "I've found the connection to the yacht security system." Garrison hacked it remotely. "The bomb's integrated with the yacht's own electronics." "Can you disconnect it?" Jack called down. "Not without triggering the mercury switch." But if we had the disarm code, Hayes was checking Murphy's wound. The old captain was conscious now, grumbling about young idiots with guns, while Emma helped apply pressure with torn fabric from her dress. 9 minutes, Morrison announced, his political composure completely shattered. "We should abandon ship. Get everyone to the lifeboats." "In these seas?" Murphy gestured weakly toward the harbor. The storm had arrived in full force, turning the usually calm waters into a churning mess. "We'd capsize before we cleared the yacht." Jack made his decision. He headed for the stairs, Emma's numbers echoing in his mind. 7-4-7-1. A child's memory, their only hope. Behind him, he heard Claire Hartley's voice, fierce with protective love. "Emma, you saved everyone. Your father would be so proud." "Not yet, Grandma," Emma replied with startling clarity. "Not until Mr. Rivers stops the bomb." 8 minutes. Jack descended into the mechanical heart of his yacht, where Danny and Sarah worked frantically among a spider's web of wires and circuits. The bomb sat at the center of it all, its timer counting down with merciless precision. "I found something," Sarah said. "The coin, the 1943 penny." Danny scanned it. "There are fingerprints, fresh ones." "Run them," Jack ordered. Danny's fingers flew across his tablet. "Already am. And got a match. But this doesn't make sense." "What?" Jack demanded. "The prints belonged to Paul Garrison. But according to this, he died in prison 8 months ago. Stabbed by another inmate. 7 minutes. Then who's been selling his bomb designs?" Hayes asked. A horrible certainty filled Jack's chest. He thought about the grieving father who turned to crime, the daughter who died before he started stealing, the elaborate revenge that seemed too personal for a mere grudge. "Check the prison records," he said quietly. "See if Garrison had any regular visitors." Danny typed rapidly. "1 visitor every week until his death, listed as his daughter." "But that's impossible. You said she died years ago." "Different daughter," Jack realized. He remarried. Had another child. Someone who'd be about 25, Sarah finished. Old enough to learn her father's trade. Young enough to want revenge on the man who sent him to die in prison. 5 minutes. The pieces were falling into place, but they were running out of time. Somewhere out there, Garrison's daughter was watching, waiting for her father's final design to complete its deadly work. And only a child's overheard numbers stood between them and destruction. 4 minutes, 30 seconds. The engine room felt smaller with each tick of the timer, the walls pressing in as Danny's equipment beeped and whirred. Jack watched the young tech work, his fingers flying across multiple devices simultaneously. "The integration is deeper than I thought," Danny muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. Garrison's daughter didn't just use his design, she improved it. The bombs connected to every system on the yacht. "Can you trace the signal?" Sarah asked, holding a flashlight steady so Danny could see the maze of wires. "Already did. It's broadcasting to a receiver somewhere within half a mile. She's watching, waiting." His tablet showed a complex diagram of signals and frequencies. But there's something else. The frequency pattern, it's not random. It's counting down in sync with the timer. Hayes had returned from topside, her weapon holstered, Murphy's stable. Emma and her grandmother are with him. That kid's got steel in her spine. "Like someone else I knew," Jack said quietly, thinking of Lily's fierce determination when she set her mind to something. 3 minutes, Morrison announced from his position by the timer. We need to make a decision. Jack pulled out the scrap of paper where he'd written Emma's numbers. 7471. 4 digits that might save them or trigger instant death. The keypad's here. Danny indicated a small panel integrated into the bomb's housing, but I'm reading a secondary circuit. If we enter the wrong code, instant detonation. Hayes finished. No second chances. What about the pattern Emma mentioned? Jack asked. She said they repeated it 3 times. That has to mean something. Danny's eyes lit up. Pattern recognition. If they repeated it exactly 3 times, it might be a verification protocol. Some systems require a code to be entered multiple times to prevent accidental activation. Or deactivation, Sarah added. 2 minutes, 15 seconds. There's another possibility, Danny said slowly. The numbers might not be the complete code. 7-4-7-1 could be just part of it. Emma said that's all she heard, Jack protested. No, Hayes corrected. She said that's what she remembered. Under stress, a child might not recall everything. Jack closed his eyes, forcing himself to think. Emma had been hiding under a table, frightened, trying to remember details that might save lives. What else had she said? The timer, he said suddenly. She specifically mentioned a waterproof timer. And she drew the engine room in red. What if... Red LED display, Danny breathed. Military timers use red displays. If she saw them testing, it saw the numbers on the timer itself. 1 minute, 40 seconds. Morrison's voice had gone flat, resigned. Check the timer display, Jack ordered. Are there any other numbers? Danny aimed a small camera at the timer. The countdown, obviously. But wait, there's a serial number. Barely visible. It starts with 47. 47, then 7-4-71, Sarah said. That's 8 digits. Standard for military detonation codes. 1 minute, 10 seconds. Jack's hands were steady as he approached the keypad. 8 digits. 1 chance. He thought of Emma's courage, of her determination to save strangers despite her terror. He thought of Lily, of all the children who deserved a chance to grow up. Everyone else leave, he said quietly. No point in all of us. Stop being noble and enter the damn code, Hayes interrupted. We're not going anywhere. 50 seconds. Jack began pressing keys. 4, 7. The soft beep of each entry seemed impossibly loud. 7, 4. His finger hovered over the next key. Wait! Emma's voice echoed down from above. I remembered something else. After the numbers, they laughed. One of them said lucky numbers, like Vegas. Vegas. 74721. Jack breathed. Blackjack. 7 plus 4 plus 7 plus 1 equals 21. The code might need a checksum, Danny said urgently. Add the last 2 digits. 2 and 1. 3, Sarah finished. Try adding 3 at the end. 30 seconds. Jack's finger moved. 1, then 3. 8 digits. Entered. His finger hovered over the enter key. Mr. Rivers. Emma's voice again. The man with the scar. He kept saying, better safe than sorry. He said it 3 times. 3 times. Like the code repetition. 20 seconds. A safety protocol, Danny said. Some military systems require confirmation. Enter the code, then enter it again to confirm. Jack looked at the timer. 15 seconds. Not enough time to enter 8 digits twice. Unless, Hayes grabbed Danny's tablet. Unless the confirmation is shorter. Just the last 4 digits. 7-4-7-1 double quotes, 10 seconds. Jack hit enter. The keypad beeped. A new prompt appeared. Confirm. 8 seconds. His fingers flew. 7, 4, 7, 1, 5 seconds. He hit enter again. 3 seconds. The timer stopped at 0:02. For a moment, no one breathed. Then the LED display flickered. and went dark. A soft click echoed through the engine room as internal mechanisms powered down. "Clear," Hayes said after checking the device. "It's fully disarmed." Jack's knees nearly buckled. Sarah caught his arm, steadying him. "Emma," he said. "We need to thank Emma." They emerged from the engine room to find the storm had passed as quickly as it had arrived. Sunlight broke through the clouds, painting the harbor in gold and silver. Coast Guard vessels were converging on the yacht, their sirens a welcome sound. Emma stood at the rail with her grandmother, still in her blood-stained dress, still clutching her teddy bear. When she saw Jack, she ran to him. Did it work? Did the numbers work? Jack knelt and hugged her, this brave child who'd saved them all. They worked perfectly. You remembered everything we needed. Over Emma's shoulder, he saw Captain Murphy being loaded onto a Coast Guard medical boat, grumbling at the medics, but very much alive. The scarred man had been pulled from the harbor, waterlogged and defeated. But Jack knew the real threat was still out there. Garrison's daughter, watching her father's legacy of destruction fail. She'd learned his trade, improved on it, and nearly succeeded. "Mr. Rivers," Emma said quietly, "I'm sorry about your daughter. Grandma told me." Jack pulled back to look at her. In her eyes, he saw understanding beyond her years. "She would have liked you," he said simply. "You're very much alike." "Brave?" Emma asked. "Brave," Jack confirmed, "and smart, and determined to help others." As the Coast Guard took over the scene, Jack stood with his unlikely team of heroes. A senator who'd found courage, a tech mogul who'd risked everything to help, a cop who'd stepped up off duty, a young genius who'd conquered his fears, and an old captain who'd refused to abandon ship, and one remarkable little girl who'd heard danger and refused to stay silent. The bomb was disarmed, but Jack knew this wasn't over. Somewhere out there, Garrison's daughter was planning her next move, but that was tomorrow's problem. Today, they were alive. And that was enough. The aftermath of near death had a peculiar quality, Jack thought. Colors seemed brighter, sounds sharper, the simple act of breathing a conscious pleasure. He stood in the engine room, watching the bomb squad carefully extract the now dormant device, their movements precise, despite the lack of immediate danger. 8 minutes, the lead technician said, examining the mechanism. That's how long the secondary timer had left when you disarmed it. 2 separate countdowns. If you'd only stopped one, Jack felt the weight of his gold watch in his pocket. He'd removed it while entering the code, needing steady hands, and found it still there. The inscription caught the light as he pulled it out. "Time heals all wounds. Love, Lily." Her last birthday gift to him, 2 weeks before she died. "Mr. Rivers," Officer Hayes approached, her expression serious. "We need to talk about Garrison's daughter." The scarred man's talking, trying to cut a deal. "Says her name is Rebecca Garrison. 26 years old. Degree in electrical engineering from MIT. Smart," Jack said. "Like her father, smarter. She didn't just learn his techniques, she refined them." This bomb was more sophisticated than anything in Garrison's previous designs. Hayes paused. "There's something else. The scarred man claims she's been planning this for months. Ever since her father died in prison." Danny looked up from his equipment. "I've been analyzing the signal patterns. The remote trigger wasn't the only thing transmitting. The bomb was sending telemetry real-time data on our attempts to disarm it. She was watching," Sarah said quietly, "learning from our success." Jack's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, then something made him answer. "Congratulations, Mr. Rivers." The voice was young, female, coldly professional. "I underestimated the child. That won't happen again." "Rebecca Garrison," Jack said, motioning for Danny to start tracing. "My father spoke of you often. How you destroyed his life over money that meant nothing to you. How you sent him to die in a cage. Your father destroyed his own life. I just held him accountable. A laugh, brittle as winter ice. Accountable. Yes, let's talk about accountability. You've disrupted years of planning, but you've also given me valuable data. My next design will be improved. There won't be a next time. We'll find you. Will you? I'm already gone, Mr. Rivers. But don't worry. We'll meet again. After all, you have so many charity events. So many opportunities to gather the guilty in one place. The guilty? The wealthy who think donations absolve. Them. The politicians who could change things but don't. The ones who let children die while they count their money. Her voice hardened. The ones like you, who my father tried to help before you destroyed him. Jack felt Danny tap his shoulder, mouthing, got her. But Jack needed to keep her talking, needed to understand. I lost a daughter too, he said, in the same bombing that killed yours. I know the pain. You know nothing. The controlled facade, cracked. You had choices, resources, power. My father had debts from my sister's medical bills. He was desperate, and you sent him to die. Rebecca, enjoy your reprieve, Mr. Rivers. But remember, every time you gather your guilty friends, I'll be watching. And next time, there won't be a brave little girl to save you. The line went dead. Marina Towers, Danny said immediately. She was calling from the observation deck. Units are en route, but she be gone, Jack finished. She's too smart to call from somewhere she could be trapped. Captain Murphy appeared in the doorway, supported by a medic, but refusing a stretcher. Yacht's clear topside. That little Emma's still here, though. Won't leave until she sees you're safe. Jack followed him up, his mind racing. Rebecca Garrison wasn't just seeking revenge, she was on a crusade. And he'd inadvertently helped train her for the next attempt. On deck, he found Emma sitting with her grandmother, wrapped in a Coast Guard blanket despite the returning warmth. She jumped up when she saw him. Mr. Rivers. Annie said the trace worked. Did you catch her? Not yet, Jack admitted, kneeling to Emma's level. But we will, thanks to you. Emma's face was serious. She's angry. Like the boys at school who lost. Someone and don't know what to do with the hurt. She paused, wisdom beyond her years showing through. My therapist says anger is just sadness that doesn't know where to go. Claire Hartley placed a protective hand on her granddaughter's shoulder. We should go. Emma's been through enough. Wait, Jack said. He removed his watch, the one with Lily's inscription. Emma, I want you to have this. I can't, Emma started. Yes, you can. You saved lives today. Lily would want someone brave to carry it. He fastened it around her thin wrist, where it hung comically large. We'll get it sized properly. But for now, remember time doesn't heal all wounds. But it does give U.S. chances to help others with theirs. Emma studied the inscription, then looked up at him. Will you stop her? The angry lady? Jack thought about Rebecca Garrison, brilliant and broken, carrying her father's legacy of destruction. He thought about the next charity event, the next gathering of potential victims. He thought about cycles of violence and grief, and the choices that led people down dark paths. We'll try, he said honestly. But Emma, you've shown us something important today. One voice, even a small one, can make all the difference. Don't ever forget that. As the Hartleys finally left, Senator Morrison approached. The press will be here soon. They'll want a statement. Tell them the truth, Jack said. A child's courage saved us all, and a young woman's pain nearly destroyed us. Both stories matter. He looked out at the harbor, where the sun was setting in earnest now, painting the water in shades of amber and rose. Somewhere out there, Rebecca Garrison was planning her next move. But here, on this yacht that had nearly become a tomb, life had won a temporary victory. His phone buzzed again. This time, The number was familiar. The hospital. Mr. Rivers? The children were asking about the cruise. Should we reschedule for next week? Jack thought about Rebecca's threat, about gathering the guilty in one place. Then he thought about Emma's courage, about refusing to let fear win. Yes, he said firmly. Same guest list, same cause. We don't stop helping because someone tries to stop us. As he ended the call, he noticed something on the deck. Emma's drawing, the one that had led them to the bomb. But there was something else on the paper now, added in a different color crayon. A simple message in a child's handwriting. Good is stronger than bad. Love, Emma. Jack carefully folded the drawing and put it in his pocket, next to the space where his watch had been. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats. Rebecca Garrison was out there, brilliant and dangerous, planning her next strike. But tonight, good had won. A child had been heard. Lives had been saved. And sometimes that was enough to keep fighting for. The sun had nearly set when Jack heard the footsteps on the yacht's deck. Not the hurried scramble of Coast Guard personnel or the measured tread of investigators, but deliberate, confident steps. He looked up from the charity donation list. He'd been reviewing names and amounts, people trying to make a difference, to see a figure silhouetted against the dying light. Hello, Mr. Rivers. She was younger than her voice had suggested on the phone. Rebecca Garrison stood at the yacht's rail, hands visible and empty, dressed in simple jeans and a Charleston Marina employee jacket, the perfect disguise for moving unnoticed through the harbor. Her father's intelligence burned in dark eyes that held too much pain for someone her age. Rebecca. Jack set down the list carefully, noting that Brad and Hayes had both noticed the newcomer and were moving into position. He subtly waved them back. Dangerous of you to come here. The police are busy chasing ghosts at Marina Towers. Your tech genius did good work tracing my relay, but I'm sure he's realized by now it was just a bounce point. She studied him with unsettling intensity. I had to see you, face to face. To understand. Understand what? How you live with it. The guilt. The ghosts. She moved closer, and Jack could see the exhaustion beneath her composure. My father talked about you constantly in his letters. The great Jack Rivers. The man who had everything, but threw him away like garbage. Your father threw himself away, Jack said gently. I just refused to enable it. Rebecca's laugh was bitter. Enable, such a clean word. Do you know what happened to him in prison? What they did to a white-collar criminal among the real predators? Jack had read the reports. Paul Garrison's death had been brutal, senseless. A gambling debt carried over from the outside, collected in blood. I'm sorry for your loss. Are you? She pulled something from her pocket, not a weapon, but a photograph. This was my sister, Angela, the one who died before my father started stealing. Jack accepted the photo. A young girl, perhaps 7, smiled from a hospital bed, despite the obvious medical equipment surrounding her. The resemblance to Emma was startling. The same determined chin, the same bright eyes. Neuroblastoma, Rebecca continued. The treatments bankrupted us. Insurance called them experimental. My father borrowed from everyone, sold everything. It wasn't enough. She died anyway. I didn't know, because you didn't ask. You saw numbers missing from spreadsheets. You didn't see the man drowning in grief who just wanted to help other sick children. Her voice caught. He started gambling to try to win enough for her treatments. After she died, he couldn't stop. The stealing, he convinced himself he was honoring her memory, that the money would help other children like her. Jack looked at the donation list in his hands. So many names, so many reasons for giving. It doesn't justify what he did. No, Rebecca agreed, but it explains it. Just like losing your daughter explains this. She gestured at the yacht, the signs of the charity event. We're not so different, Mr. Rivers. We both lost children. We both tried to make meaning from the loss. You chose charity. My father chose crime. I chose," she trailed off, "revenge? Justice." The word came out hard, clipped. "You sent him to die." Someone had to balance the scales. Movement behind Rebecca caught Jack's eye. Emma had appeared at the top of the gangway, Claire trying to pull her back. The child's eyes were wide, but not with fear, with recognition. "You're her," Emma said, slipping free from her grandmother's grasp. "The sad lady on the phone." "Rebecca." Spun, her composure cracking at the sight of the child who'd thwarted her plans. "You should be gone. All of you should be gone." "But we're not," Emma said simply. She walked forward, still clutching her teddy bear, now cleaned of Captain Murphy's blood. "Because being sad doesn't mean you get to hurt people. What do you know about it?" Rebecca's voice rose. "You're just a child. You don't understand loss. My daddy died." Emma's words cut through the night air. "In Afghanistan. Saving other soldiers. I was 4. She held up her bear. This was his. He carried it with him to remember me. They sent it back with his things." Rebecca stared at the child, momentarily. Speechless. Emma continued, her young voice steady. "Grandma says Daddy died being who he was, someone who protected people. If I hurt someone because I miss him, that would make his sacrifice mean nothing." "It's not that simple," Rebecca whispered. "Isn't it?" Jack asked. He thought of the donation list, of the names he'd recognized. Senator Morrison's nephew lost his leg in the same bombing that killed Lily and Angela. Sarah Chun's company develops prosthetics because she lost her brother to treatable injuries in a poor neighborhood. Captain Murphy funds maritime safety programs because his son drowned. We all have our ghosts, Rebecca. The choice is what we do with them. Rebecca's hand moved to her pocket again. Hayes tensed, but what emerged was another photo Paul Garrison, with 2 young girls, Rebecca and Angela, years before tragedy struck. "He was a good father," she said quietly. "Before it all went wrong, he used to take us sailing. Said the water was where problems couldn't follow." She looked at the yacht's deck, where the bomb had nearly ended so many stories. "I thought if I could make you pay, it would mean something, that his death would mean something." "It does mean something," Jack said. "It means his daughter survived. It means you have choices he didn't get to make. You're going to arrest me." "Yes," Hayes said, stepping forward. "But that's not where your story ends. It's where it changes direction." Rebecca looked at Emma one more time. "You're braver than I was at your age." "I was scared," Emma admitted. "But Mr. Rivers says being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the right thing anyway." Rebecca nodded slowly, then held out her hands for Hayes's cuffs. "The scarred man Marcus Volkov. He has a boat at Slip 47. You'll find evidence of other jobs there. Other bombs that didn't get planted because I was focused on this one." As Hayes led Rebecca away, she turned back one last time. "Mr. Rivers, take care of that little girl. The world needs more voices like hers." Jack watched them go, feeling the weight of endings and beginnings. Emma slipped her small hand into his. "Will she be okay?" Emma asked. "I don't know," Jack said honestly. "But she has a chance now to choose differently." The stars were coming out over Charleston Harbor, reflecting on water that had nearly been a grave. Tomorrow, the charity event would be rescheduled. The donations would flow. Children would be helped. And somewhere, in a small apartment, Jack would place 2 photos side by side, Lily and Angela, 2 girls whose deaths had set so much in motion. He'd light a candle for them both, and for all the children whose stories ended too soon. But tonight, he walked with Emma to where her grandmother waited, 3 generations bound by loss but choosing hope. The yacht rocked gently in its berth, scarred but intact, ready to sail again when the time came. "Mr. Rivers?" Emma asked as they reached her grandmother. Do you think people can really change, even when they've done bad things? Jack thought of Paul Garrison, dead in a prison cell. Of Rebecca, brilliant and broken, facing her own reckoning. Of himself, trying to build something good from the ruins of loss. I think, he said carefully, that every sunrise is a second chance. What we do with it, that's what defines us. Emma nodded solemnly, then surprised him with a fierce hug. Thank you for believing me. Thank you, Jack said, for being brave enough to speak up. As the Hartleys left, Jack remained on deck, watching the harbor lights dance on the water. His phone buzzed messages from donors, from reporters, from people who'd heard about the day's events. Tomorrow he'd deal with them all, but tonight he simply stood witness to the truth Emma had shown them all. Sometimes the smallest voices carried the most important messages, and sometimes listening to them made all the difference. Rebecca Garrison sat in the yacht's main salon, handcuffed but calm, while investigators processed the scene. She'd waived her right to an attorney, insisting she had information that couldn't wait. Jack watched from the doorway as Hayes conducted the interview, noting how young Rebecca looked under the harsh emergency lighting. The Volkov job in Miami, she was saying, her voice steady. The device is in a hotel air conditioning unit. The ambassador's conference is in 3 days. You'll find the details on Volkov's boat. Hayes took notes, professional despite the surreal situation. A bomber providing a list of her own unexploded devices, preventing the very destruction she'd planned. Why tell us this? Hayes asked. Rebecca's eyes found Jack across the room. Because a little girl with a teddy bear reminded me who I used to be, before the anger, before the pain made me into this. Emma had insisted on staying despite Claire's protests. She sat quietly beside Jack, occasionally squeezing his hand when the details became too dark. Her presence seemed to affect Rebecca profoundly, the child who'd stopped her plans, becoming a silent witness to her confession. There are 5 devices total, Rebecca continued, all targeting what my father called blood money events, gatherings, where the wealthy pretend caring while children suffer. I have the disarm codes for all of them. She recited from memory, numbers flowing like a deadly poem. Danny typed furiously, coordinating with bomb squads in 5 cities. One by one, confirmations. Came back devices found, disarmed, lives saved. The Chicago device is different, Rebecca said suddenly. More sophisticated. I built it last, after learning from the others. The code alone won't work. What will? Hayes leaned forward. Rebecca looked at Emma. It needs a secondary input, a voice command. I programmed it to respond only to a child's voice, saying, I forgive you. The room fell silent. The twisted poetry of it a bomb that could only be disarmed by the forgiveness of a child. I'll do it, Emma said quietly. No, Claire said immediately. Absolutely not. She's been through enough. Grandma, Emma's voice carried gentle steel. If I don't, people will die. Children will lose their parents. Parents will lose their children. She looked at Jack. Like Lily, like Angela. Jack's throat tightened. This brave child, carrying weights no 9-year-old should bear. We can't. Ask this of you, Emma. You're not asking. I'm offering. She stood, small and determined. Miss Rebecca, can you show them exactly what I need to do? Rebecca's eyes filled with tears, the first real emotion she'd shown beyond anger. You'd do that? After what I tried to do here? My daddy used to say that hate is like drinking poison and hoping someone else gets sick, Emma said. I don't want to drink poison. The Chicago bomb squad was patched in via satellite phone. Rebecca walked them through the location of a charity auction for pediatric cancer research, scheduled for tomorrow night. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The device was hidden in the main stage's sound system, integrated so deeply that removing it would trigger detonation. The voice recognition is specific, Rebecca explained. It needs to be a child, under 12, speaking clearly and meaning it. The system can detect stress patterns. If the child is being coerced or doesn't genuinely mean the words, it won't work. Hayes finished. Emma pulled at something around her neck, a small cross on a silver chain. This was my daddy's too. He wore it every day in Afghanistan. Grandma says it protected him until the very end, when he chose to protect others instead. She walked to where Rebecca sat, this small girl approaching the woman who'd nearly killed dozens. The room held its breath. I need to practice, Emma said practically. So I mean it when I say it. Rebecca stared at her. How can you forgive? Me? I'm a monster. No, Emma said firmly. You're hurt. Monsters don't cry. Monsters don't stop other bombs from exploding. Monsters don't care who they hurt. She reached out with her free hand, the one not clutching her bear, and touched Rebecca's. Cuffed hands. You cared enough to stop. The yacht's salon became a cathedral of silence as Emma closed her eyes, her lips moving in what might have been prayer. When she opened them, they were clear and determined. I forgive you, she said to Rebecca, for the fear, for the anger, for letting pain make you do bad things. Her voice grew stronger. I forgive you because someone needs to. Because forgiveness is how we stop poison from spreading. Rebecca broke down completely, sobs shaking her thin frame. Emma didn't pull away, just stood there, a child offering absolution to someone who'd never expected it. Chicago team, are you ready? Hayes asked into the phone. They were. The device had been located, the voice input system identified. Emma would need to speak into Hayes's phone, her words transmitted to the bomb 800 miles away. Remember, Rebecca said through her tears, it has to be real. The system will know. Emma nodded. She looked around the room at Jack, who'd lost a daughter, at Hayes, who'd lost a brother, at her grandmother, who'd lost a son. All of them. Choosing to build rather than destroy. I'm ready, she said. Hayes held out the phone. The Chicago team confirmed the connection. In a hotel ballroom, hundreds of miles away, a device waited to hear words it had been programmed to recognize, not codes or commands, but the pure sound of forgiveness. Emma took a deep breath. When she spoke, her voice carried the wisdom of believers, loss and the strength of hope. I forgive you. 3 words. Simple, true, powerful enough to stop destruction in its tracks. Device disarmed, the Chicago team reported. Clean and safe. My God, it worked. The room erupted in relief, but Emma wasn't done. She turned back to Rebecca, who sat stunned by the reality of what had just happened. Your daddy loved you, Emma said. Even when he did wrong things, my daddy loved me too. That love doesn't go away just because they're gone. She held out her teddy bear, her most precious possession, carried by her father through war. This helped me remember that love is stronger than hate. Maybe it can help you too. Rebecca looked at the offered bear, then at the child offering it. I can't take this. It's all you have left of him. No, Emma said with a smile wise beyond her years. I have memories. I have Grandma's stories. I have the way he taught me to be brave. She pressed the bear into Rebecca's cuffed hands. But I think you need Bear more than I do right now. Jack had to turn away, overwhelmed by the grace of it. This child, who'd lost so much, offering comfort to someone who tried to take everything. Time to go, Hayes said gently to Rebecca. But her voice held new respect, new possibility. You'll face charges, but your cooperation today will matter. And there are programs in prison counseling, education, ways to rebuild. As they led Rebecca away, she clutched Emma's bear like the lifeline it was. At the door, she turned back one last time. Mr. Rivers? That list you were reading, the donors, add my name. She managed a broken smile. Not much left after the lawyers, But what there is should go to children who need help. Children like Angela, like Lily, like Emma. Then she was gone, leaving behind a room full of people forever changed by the events of this impossible day. Emma walked back to Jack, her small hand slipping into his. Without her bear, she looked even younger, but her eyes held ancient understanding. "Are you all right?" Jack asked. "That was incredibly brave." "I'm sad," Emma admitted. "But it's a good sad. Like when you cry at the end of a movie because things worked out okay." She looked up at him. "Do you think Bear will help her?" Jack thought of his own talismans, Lily's photograph, her last gift, the memories that both hurt and healed. "I think it already has." Claire finally found her voice. "Emma Louise Hartley, you just gave away your most precious." "Not gave away," Emma corrected gently. "Shared. There's a difference." She looked at her grandmother with those two eyes. Eyes Daddy would understand. He shared his life to save others. I just shared a bear. As the investigators finished their work and the yacht finally emptied of everyone but family, for that's what they'd become, Jack realized this unlikely. Group forged in crisis Captain Murphy appeared with a thermos of hot chocolate he'd somehow procured. "Thought the young hero might need something sweet," he said, pouring cups for everyone. "Been quite a day." They sat on the deck as the moon rose over Charleston Harbor, sharing chocolate and silence and the bone-deep relief of survival. Tomorrow would bring questions, investigations, media attention. But tonight, they were simply people who'd faced darkness and chosen light. "Mr. Rivers?" Emma asked sleepily, curled against her grandmother, but holding tight to Jack's hand. "Will you still have the charity cruise? Even after all this?" Jack looked at this remarkable child who'd saved them all, who turned revenge into redemption with 3 simple words. "Yes, next week, if the Coast Guard clears us. Will you come?" Emma smiled, her eyes already closing. "I'll be there. Someone needs to make sure everyone stays safe." As Claire gathered her granddaughter to leave, Emma stirred one more time. "Mr. Rivers, I think Lily would be proud of you. For listening, for believing, for not letting the scared feelings win." Then she was asleep, carried in her grandmother's arms, leaving Jack on his yacht with tears streaming down his face and hope blooming in his chest for the first time in 5 years. The night was warm, the harbor calm. Somewhere in a police transport, a broken young woman held a teddy bear and began the long journey back to who she could have been. And on a yacht marked by violence but redeemed by courage, Jack Rivers sat with his found family and knew that Lily's death had not been in vain. Because of her, he'd learned to listen. Because of Emma, he'd learned to trust. And because of them both, lives had been saved and a cycle of vengeance broken. The stars reflected on the peaceful water. And for the first time since that terrible morning 5 years ago, Jack Rivers felt the beginning of something that might, someday, become peace. 1 month later, the Second Chance sailed from Charleston Harbor under a perfect Carolina sky. The yacht gleamed in the morning sun, no trace remaining of the violence that had nearly destroyed it. But if you knew where to look, you could see the change's new safety protocols, additional security measures, and most importantly, a small brass plaque mounted on the bridge. Jack ran his fingers over the engraved words. The Second Chance Foundation, protecting tomorrow's voices, honoring yesterday's losses, founded in memory of Lily Rivers and Angela Garrison, and in honor of Emma Hartley, who reminded us that courage comes in all sizes. "It's perfect," Claire Hartley said, joining him on the bridge. She'd aged in the past month, the stress of the events taking its toll, but her eyes held new purpose. As the Foundation's new co-director, she brought decades of experience in childhood trauma and recovery. Emma helped with the wording, Jack said. She insisted both girls' names be included. Through the bridge window, they could see Emma on the main deck, helping other children with their life jackets. She moved with easy confidence, no longer the terrified girl who'd pushed through a crowd with an urgent warning. The mayor had presented her with a citizenship award, but she'd been more excited about her new role as a junior safety officer for the Foundation's events. She still has nightmares, Claire said quietly, about the bomb, about what could have happened, but she doesn't let them stop her, Jack observed. She's remarkable. She gets that from her father. And Claire paused, choosing her words carefully. From you. You've become important to her, Jack. I hope you know that. Before Jack could respond, Officer Hayes appeared, wearing civilian clothes, but carrying herself with the same quiet authority. Security sweeps complete. We're good to go. She'd taken a leave of absence from the force to serve as the Foundation security director, bringing a perspective that balanced safety with openness. Any concerns? Jack asked. None, though Danny's new detection system flagged a suspicious device in the galley. She smiled. Turned out to be Senator Morrison's pacemaker. He was not amused. They shared a laugh. Morrison had become one of the Foundation's most vocal supporters, his political influence helping fast-track programs for at-risk youth. His nephew Timothy, the boy who'd lost his leg in the school bombing, now served as a peer counselor for other young trauma survivors. Sarah Chun emerged from below decks, tablet in hand. The Miami branch is confirmed. The city's donating the building, and we've got commitments for the first year's operating expenses. She looked up, satisfaction evident. Rebecca's information about the bomb locations gave us unexpected leverage. Grateful cities are generous cities. Rebecca. Jack thought of her often, tracking her progress through the system. She'd pled guilty to all charges, accepting a 15-year sentence without complaint. But she'd also enrolled in every rehabilitation program available, teaching electronics to other inmates, writing letters of apology to those she'd nearly hurt. Emma wrote to her weekly, sharing drawings and stories, maintaining the bridge of forgiveness she'd built. Mr. Jack, Mr. Jack. A young voice called out. Marcus, one of the children from the hospital, ran up clutching a toy boat. Look, it floats and everything. Jack knelt to admire the craft, remembering another child's excitement over simple toys. But this time, instead of pain, the memory brought warmth. Lily lived on in every child helped, every life saved, every moment of joy salvaged from sorrow. All aboard for the harbor tour. Captain Murphy's voice boomed over the speakers. He'd recovered fully from his injury, though he now sported a distinguished scar that he claimed made him look like a proper pirate. Smooth seas and fair winds await. The children cheered, racing to the rails to watch the shore recede. Parents and guardians followed more sedately, many of them survivors of their own tragedies, finding community in shared purpose. Mr. Rivers. A small hand tugged at his jacket. Emma stood there, her hair now neatly braided by her grandmother. She wore a junior captain's hat Murphy had given her, slightly too big, but worn with pride. There's someone you should meet. She led him to a quiet corner where a woman sat alone, watching the water. Mid-30s, professionally dressed but with an air of uncertainty. This is Mrs. Garrison, Emma said gently. Rebecca's mom. Jack's breath caught. He knew Rebecca's parents had divorced years ago, that her mother had remarried, moved away. But here she was, drawn by what guilt? Curiosity? Hope? I'm sorry, the woman said quickly. I shouldn't have come. I heard about the Foundation, about both girls being remembered. I needed to see. You're welcome here, Jack said, meaning it. Always. Rebecca wrote me, told me about Emma, about the bear. Tears tracked down her face. I failed her. After Angela died, after Paul spiraled, I ran. Left her with her father's anger and my absence. You're here now, Emma said simply. That matters. The woman looked at this child with wonder. You're the one who forgave her, who saved all those people. We all saved each other, Emma corrected. That's what people do when they remember to be kind. Jack watched Emma comfort a stranger whose daughter had tried to kill them all, and felt the last walls around his heart crumble. This was Lily's true legacy, not the pain of loss, but the choice to transform it into love. The yacht moved into open water, Charleston shrinking behind them. On deck, children laughed and played while adults found connection in shared purpose. The Second Chance Foundation had prevented 3 more attacks in its first month, using Rebecca's intelligence and Emma's example to build bridges where others might build walls. "Look!" Marcus shouted, pointing to the water. "Dolphins!" A pod had joined them, leaping and playing in the yacht's wake. Emma ran to the rail, her face bright with wonder. For a moment, she was just a child again, unburdened by the weight of what she'd seen and done. Jack found himself at the spot where Emma had first appeared with her warning. So much had changed since that afternoon. Lives saved, connections forged, purposes discovered. He pulled out his phone, checking the latest update from the Foundation's newest project, early warning system that took children's concerns seriously, investigating every report with the gravity Emma's warning had deserved. "She saved us all," Morrison said, joining him. "Not just from the bomb, from ourselves. From what we might have become," Jack nodded. In his pocket, he carried 2 photos, now Lily and Emma, past and future, loss and hope intertwined. The charity cruise continued. The hospital would receive its funding, but everything had deeper meaning now. "Mr. Rivers?" Danny appeared, excited. "The Chicago branch just called. A 10-year-old boy reported suspicious activity near his school. Turned out to be real. They stopped a kidnapping attempt. The system works. The system Emma had inspired. The foundation she'd made possible. The future she'd helped secure. As the yacht headed back to harbor, the sun beginning its descent toward the horizon, Jack stood with his extended family of choice, Claire and Emma, representing generations of resilience. Hayes and Murphy, protectors by nature and calling. Sarah and Danny, innovators building better tomorrows. Morrison, proof that power could serve purpose. Even Mrs. Garrison, tentatively, joining their circle, showing that redemption reached beyond prison walls. "Will Rebecca get out someday?" Emma asked quietly, sensing the mood. "In time," Jack said. "With good behavior, with change, with hope." "Yes, good," Emma said firmly. "Everyone deserves a second chance. That's what the boat's name means, right?" Jack looked at the yacht that had almost been their tomb, now carrying laughter and life. At the plaque honoring the lost while celebrating. The saved. At the little girl who taught them all that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but action in its presence. "Yes," he said. "That's exactly what it means." The dolphins leaped one more time as they entered the harbor, and somewhere in the distance, church bells rang the hour. On the Second Chance, children waved at passing boats, while adults made plans for expanding the Foundation's reach. And in a quiet corner, Jack Rivers opened the next letter from Rebecca Garrison, which began, "Dear Mr. Rivers, Emma's bear helped me sleep through the night without nightmares for the first time in years. I'm learning to forgive myself. Thank you for showing me it's possible." He folded the letter carefully, adding it to the growing collection that charted a journey from revenge to redemption. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats, new opportunities to choose light over darkness. But today, as Charleston Harbor welcomed them home, as Emma's laughter rang out over the water, as broken people found ways to heal together, Jack Rivers knew with certainty that second chances weren't just possible. They were the most powerful force in the world. The yacht docked smoothly, and as the children disembarked, each one stopped to touch the brass plaque for luck. Emma waited until last, reading the words she'd helped choose one more time. "We did good, didn't we, Mr. Jack?" she asked. "We did good," he confirmed, taking her small hand in his. And tomorrow, we'll do even better. Together, they walked off. The second chance, ready for whatever came next, knowing that the smallest voices could indeed change the world one act of courage at a time.